Hi class, in this video we're going to add a little bit more advanced data validation to our web form and our calendar control. So the first thing we want to do is add some data validation to our first name field. We want this to be a required field, so looking at our standard controls we can check, don't see anything about validation, but oh, look, I do see a whole category. So let's look at that validation category. Notice that we could use a regex validation. If we had some regex code created, we could use that pattern to validate. We can use required field, range validation, custom validator, and comparison validator. So it gives us a lot of capabilities. What we want to do is take this validator control and place it right beside, in this case, the field that we want to validate. And of course, that took some of my other stuff out, so I'll backspace a little bit, try to clean it up a little bit. Now, this required field validator is where my error message is going to display if a validation encounters an error. There is no first name. So for our error message, we would like that to say something maybe a little bit different, like first name is required. What else would be handy for us with our validation? Let's see. Now, as we work with validation, the validation is going to occur when there's a postback to the server, especially with our buttons. So let's look at our button here, our submit info button, and we'll come back to our validator. In our submit info button, here is a validation group, validation request, causes validation, and causes validation is the one that is going to make that clicking of this button check to make sure that something has been entered for the first name, because that's going to be a valid thing. Now let's see if there's anything else we need to change on our validation. I'd like for this to display a really noticeable color, so let's pick a red. There we go. And then that's the message we should see if we try to click our submit info button without typing in a first name. Now we have some other postback events on our form, our radio buttons, so let's make sure that they don't cause validation. They do not. Causes validation is false. Perfect. So let's run our application. Oop, and I got an error. It says, when you added this required control to your form, you didn't say what field I'm supposed to be validating. Well, I said it right there beside it. Could it not figure it out? No, it couldn't. So my control to validate, I have to actually specify which form control has to be required. So we want it to be our first name. That should work better. Let's try it. So we can click some things. Web Forms unobtrusive validation mode requires a script resource mapping for jQuery. Where's that coming from? Let's check that validator again. Right here, let's see what kind of thing we have. Here it is, enable client script. Well, that's super handy. That means that we could set up a JavaScript to run on the client side, the client machine, if this validation error were found. We don't really want to do that, so let's change it to false. That was enable client script. And one more time. Try all of our different properties here. I'm going to choose a radio button. That's good. I'll click on a list box, make sure nothing breaks. I'll type in the last name. Now when I click submit, I should get this message. First name is required. Notice that I also got a regular message though. Now, as we look at our code, we could check some conditions to make sure that no error has occurred, but our message is showing it's not hurting anything right now. We see how that validation works. Now, when we're working with a web form, we want to be aware of the page life cycle. Web programming is just different than Windows application, and the page life cycle is one reason why. There are a number of events that fire up automatically and sequentially on web pages. So page underscore pre underscore init, load view state, load postback data, page underscore load, and eventually page underscore unload. The sequence of events can be somewhat complex. So you don't have to do a lot of work there for your page load, but you need to understand when it's going to run. Now, they say that the page load event is the most commonly used method on the server side for ASPX code. The last thing that's going to occur is our page unload. So we want to make sure that we have everything set for that. Now let's add in our calendar control. See how it's going to mess up our web form. Where might we find that? Data? No. There's a calendar. Now I want this calendar to be right over here. So I'm going to click there and then double click to add my calendar. Now for my calendar, first thing that I want to do is double check some of the items in our ASPX source code because they say we need some certain things going here. So here's our calendar ID. And they made theirs absolute. We don't need to do that. We're okay. We're just bouncing around everywhere. Now, after checking our ASPX file, we can look at our code behind file and decide how we want things to work. Let's see. We would like to have a, let me rearrange here a little bit. I want my submit info button to be up here. So if you notice, I grabbed that title bar for it, and then I could drag it around on our form. So there's our submit info button. Now under our submit info button, we're going to have another button that's going to be our see current members. We're not ready to do that yet. And then below that, we want a few other things. So first of all, we want a label. I put a label in. What's it going to do? It's going to go way down here. So let's type our information in. We want this label to say, click below to see when the club meets next. And can I move that now? And let me. So it just seems like we need some sort of div tag or something. I'll let you web geniuses figure this out. I would really like to get that to work a little bit better. Now, what we are going to click here is our button, and our button is going to be next meeting. So here's our button, our text, next meeting, and let's name that button BTM Next. Now, when somebody clicks Next Meeting, we want to display on the calendar when our next meeting is. It would be nice of us to set the date in our page load method. Let's try it. Let's look at our code here. Now we can find our page load. We don't have any code in that method yet, so we're going to enclose this within TryCatch. So remember, when we're talking about our page status, we had several different life cycle events. We want to see if this page is posting back. If it's not, we're going to update the calendar's date. We don't want to update it if they've already picked one. But if they haven't, we want to go ahead and set it to today. Now, if we catch any sort of error, we're going to set our output text property equal to that exception message. Oops. Let's catch that as an exception. And then we can grab that message from our exception. Now that's going to set up our page load to show the current date is today. Now, there are lots of methods that are available. Working with the calendar control gives us great capabilities. Sometimes it can almost be kind of confusing because it does give us so much. So be sure and do a lot of testing there and get familiar with some of the options you have. For ours, I'm going to double click on our next meeting button and we'll add some code. We want to take our calendar and we want to clear those selected dates that we put in there in our page load. There we go, selected dates. Now we're going to set up a variable. It's a DateTime data type. And it's going to be our meeting date. It's a new date time, and we want to start out with an initial value of date time today dot year dot month dot day, and then for our time we're going to set it to 8 o'clock. No, a date time variable needs both a date and a time. So we've set it to today's date and 8 o'clock is a time. Our meeting is going to be 1 week from today. So we're going to use some of those calendar methods to add days, and we want to add 7 days to that selected date. Now, if that comes out to be a Sunday, we can check the day of week, convert it to a string, and set it equal to Sunday. If it is a Sunday, we can't have our meeting that day. So we'll add days again. And this time we just want to add 1 day. We'll make it Monday. Okay? Now that we've got our meeting date calculated properly, let's update our calendar control to display it. First of all, we're going to say, hey, calendar one, set your today's date property equal to my meeting date. Set the selected date equal to that today's date that we just set, and update a message that we've got to add to our form. Meeting next week, space, plus meeting date dot day of week. What else do we want? A comma, space, plus the month of our meeting, and we'll add a slash. And then our day. Now we're also going to specify the time is at, and it's surrounded by spaces. So this should format a nice message as to when our meeting is. Now I need to add that label to our form. So let's do that. I'll put it right there. And it will be LBM MSG. And I'll make its default text property empty. Now let's run. And I'm putting my name because I know it's going to complain to me about that. Junior, senior, that works. Kind of messed up there. Ask a techie. Now I want to know when this next meeting is. It's the 27th. That looks good. Now I can submit info. Now that looks great. Let's reload. Didn't load very good, did it? Let's run it again. I want to make sure that if I leave the name out, our next meeting button doesn't. Oh, look, it does. It causes that validation. So we better correct that issue. So here in our next meeting button, in our causes validation property, we will set that to false. Okay, so our application is coming along nicely. We have some data validation. We have used several of our form controls and our calendar control. In the next video, we'll add the final button and access to the database so that we can display the member information. Thank you.